Okay, so let us get started with boundaries since I would like to keep you guys on a time. Yes, they are very beautiful. And I love trees. I want to keep us on time. This is about an hour and 5 minutes. I know a couple of you have to drop off at the top of the hour. So I want to respect your time and just thank you so much for being here and for being a part of this. I just appreciate every one of you. Can everybody see the video? Yes, give me a thumbs up. Awesome. Okay, cool. So let's start talking about invincible boundaries. And my goal for you today is to literally have you walk out of this room with a cape on so that any conversation you go into, you have the tools where you can feel equipped and powerful to be confident and courageous in any boundary conversation. Did you know that my PowerPoint is not working? Did you know that 65% of women report having trouble saying no to other people, and 52% of women consider themselves people pleasers? Maybe this is you. I know I've struggled with this for a long time as well. So when you think about setting a limit or communicating a preference, raise your physical hand if it brings up feelings of anxiety or fear. And the whole room says yes. What has your resistance to boundaries been? I want you to just think about this. What has your experience been? We're just going to kind of get the juices rolling on boundaries. I want you to think back to a time where you have been successful. Yes, confrontation. What else has your experience been? Safety. Dr. Paula, love it. We've got a boundary badass in the room. Love that. Boundaries may mean I'm not a nice person. Nancy, we're going to talk about that. Will they still love me? I don't want to disappoint anybody. Colette, very good. Yeah, all of those things come up. Needing to explain myself and not being able to, right? Won't say it right, so don't say it at all. I have had every single one of those experiences. And so the tools that I want to take you guys through today will help you navigate those feelings and give you a foundation and give you some practical ways to conquer those things. Whether you are awesome at boundaries, I'm going to help you get to the next level, or whether you struggle with boundaries, I'm going to help you figure out ways that you can feel confident in them, because our world is made up of relationships, and relationships that are healthy mean having healthy boundaries. And I want to help you do that today. So I want to start with a little story. It is not my story, but it's a story that has had a profound impact on me. It's called Fences. An old study was conducted to discover the effects of a fence around a playground and the impact that it would have on children. In scenario 1, teachers took kids to a playground without a fence. In this scenario, without a fence, the kids remained huddled around the teacher and they were super afraid to explore. Scenario 2 had a fence. And in this scenario, researchers watched the kids venture out further from the teacher, and they were less afraid to explore. The kids went all over, they went on the jungle gym, they went on the swings, and they didn't huddle around the teacher. And the overwhelming conclusion was, within a given limitation, kids feel safer to explore a playground. It's almost the opposite of what we might expect to happen. Boundaries are the exact same. They give us parameters within which our relationships operate more effectively. So today, as we go through, if boundaries has a negative connotation for you kind of in your brain, I want you to start thinking of boundaries as freedom within a framework. And I want you to remember this example of the kids, and when they were given the framework of the fence, how much freer they felt to explore. So pop a yes in the chat if this story is going to help you look at boundaries, look at setting limits with people in relationships in a different way. Yeah, I like that. I love that story for a while too. Good. Because if we can redefine what it means to set a boundary, we can redefine how we experience it in our nervous system. And that's the goal of today. So today's roadmap, what does it look like? We're going to go through 3 points, 3 keys. The first is boundaries unveiled. This is just the nuts and bolts of boundaries, the really boring, this is what a boundary is. This is what we need to know. That will cue us up for your nervous system as your ultimate wing woman. What's a wing woman? I have a couple of y'all in here. They are the people that come alongside of us to support us in our endeavors. That's what your nervous system is designed to do. And I'm going to take you through an exercise that will get you familiar and friends with your nervous system. Because sometimes if our nervous system isn't our ally, it can be our worst enemy in boundaries. So I'm going to kind of flip the script on that. And then we're going to talk about scripting for success. I found in my own boundaries that if I have something to go back to, if I can go back to a script, it helps me stay on track, which relaxes my nervous system. So I'm going to teach you a script that I teach all of my clients in my relationship reset course. And also I have used it in my personal life to create the healthy relationship I'm in now. So that's today. So who the heck am I? My name is Jenny Rain, and I have 32 years in corporate leadership settings, working with C-suite and middle management, running training departments, and also running marketing. I just finished my doctorate in psychology. I am waiting on 2 approvals, and then I move on to defense, which I'm very excited about. So I'm one step closer. I have a master's in divinity and 10 years of full-time ministry, helping people deconstruct and heal from really toxic religious wounding. There are very healthy spiritual systems out there, and I am a full believer in them. And I also help people when they've been wounded in this area. I wrote and launched an international curriculum for domestic violence nonprofit in Washington, D.C., and I co-authored with 15 other authors, Raised by Unicorns, Stories from Kids with LGBTQ Parents. I am trained in a variety of modalities that you'll see me talk about today: brain spotting, ISP, internal family systems, and parts work, and I use all of that in my work. I'm a domestic violence survivor, and as a result, I bring that work into what I do too. I founded Jenny Rain Coaching to empower women to move on from toxic relationship cycles that have kept them stuck for decades, so that they can live into their full potential. So that's a little bit about me. Today, I want to help co-create a safe zone with you. So what does that mean? Many of us are practitioners, coaches, therapists, chaplains. We are the leaders of our communities. And a lot of times that means we don't get to sit in spaces and receive. I want you to put all of those hats on the side, and I want you to be in receive mode. The chat's for ahas. It's for you to receive, for you to feel just like you are being served today. I want us to be confidential. What is said in here stays here, here. And if we can all agree to that, then we can create a safe space. Be positive. We're all responsible for the energy that we bring to this container. Be generative and inclusive. I want people to always feel safe in my containers by feeling included, by feeling like they are being equipped, and be present with your camera on, because when you are engaged, you can better listen for that one thing that will make a difference in your boundary setting. And that's all you have to do today, is listen for the one thing that you can take home with you. I totally lost my slide. Sorry, guys. I want to tell you a little story about a daffodil. The first time I set a boundary with my family, even nature celebrated the win. I have 2 sides of my family. I've got my dad's here in Palm Springs, and then I've got my mom and my stepdad in Georgia. And on my mom and my stepdad's side, boundaries are pretty non-existent. As a child, I hadn't learned them. And my mom, their generation hadn't ever really been taught boundaries. And so she didn't know how to teach them to me. The net result on this side of the family, because of a lack of boundaries, was a lot of enmeshment. My family was kind of like this. Lots of triangulation, lots of people getting involved in family stories and drama that we didn't need to. I was 10 years old navigating fights. Maybe you guys can relate. So I was 34 and I was visiting my mom and my stepdad. They were storming into conflict as per usual. And at one point, my mom turned to me like this, and she tried to triangulate me and pull me into their fight. She wanted me to take her side. And I stopped, I breathed, and I didn't take the bait. Instead, I said, your conflict doesn't involve me. My whole body was shaking. My voice was quaking. I didn't know what to do next. So I literally turned on my heel and I stomped out to my car. I was driving a little Honda Fit. It was like a little roller skate. So I'm like Minnie Mouse running out to my car. And at the moment that I reached down to open the handle of my car, I looked over and a daffodil popped wide open. And it started unfurling itself to the sun, and it stopped me in my tracks. I realized in that moment that the thing that was so hard for me to do, nature had seen, witnessed, and celebrated. I was awestruck, and I will never forget that moment. And since that moment, I have been so much better about setting boundaries with my family. So how are you at setting boundaries with family and coworkers and within your interpersonal? Cindy, not good, right? I will tell you, for decades, I was awful at it. I still have to work on this all the time. Much better. Good. I'm horrible. Elvira, right? We're going to work on that today. Good. So I want you to think today and remember today about the daffodil. Takes work. Exactly, Gail. Chaplain Candy says, I'm good. I've gotten so much better. Awesome, you guys. So I want you to think about the daffodil as we move through this today, because there's a daffodil opening that is waiting for all of you to celebrate your boundaries. So let us dive into the material. Key 1, Dr. Paula, I'm good. She says, when I first got married, my husband wanted to have a verbal argument with me, and I told him I choose not to engage. Way to use your agency. I love that. I love that. All right, so key 1, boundaries unveiled. This is your blueprint for empowerment. These are just the high-level details of what boundaries are. So what I want you to do next is go to the boundaries assessment at jennyrain.com/boundary assessment. If you have downloaded the workbook and would rather do it here, this is your workbook, and it is on page 4. And I want you to take a couple of minutes to just go through those answers. Let me see. Let me put it in here. There you go.
Sorry, Jenny, I was trying.
You're good.
You got it in there?
I have fast fingers. Yes, I got it in there. I knew what it was. So go ahead and take or you can do it in your book. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss it.
For those just joining, I added the link again
Thank
to
you.
do the assessment.
We are working on the boundaries assessment. And I'm actually on the back end. Your responses are anonymous, but I am on the back end. This is awesome, you guys. We'll take about 30 more seconds. Thank you, Colette. Good. So let's look at some of the responses. So everyone said yes to, I believe I have the power to set boundaries. So 100% of you. So that is a great place to start as we move into boundaries discussions. Number two, I don't feel the need to justify my boundaries when I set them. We are at about a 57% yes, and 42% of you said no. So we'll work on that. It just switched. 55% of you said no, and 44% of you said yes. And I don't feel the need to justify my boundaries. 9 out of 9 people, I'm sorry, not 9 out of 9, 89% of you said, I believe boundaries will help me create healthy relationships. I love it. 55% of you said, I own all of my feelings. 100% of you, and I love that you guys all said yes to this, I have a right to request things I want and need in relationships. If you remember nothing else from this workshop, remember that you said yes to that. I have a right to request things I want and need from relationships. I also want you to remember this. I have equal value and worth to the other person I'm in relationship with. You guys, 100% of you answered yes. 100% of you answered boundaries are an effective way to set limits in relationships. Loving this, you guys. Only 33.3% of you said, I know how to find the words to communicate my boundaries to other people. We're going to talk about the 4-step rule of communication later, and that's a script that's going to help you with that. I have a right to express my expectations for communication and respect to other people. 77% of you said yes to that. 22% said no. And only 33% of you said yes to, I believe when I set a boundary, it will not jeopardize the connection in my relationship. So believe it or not, this is awesome. Thank you guys for participating in that. So as we go through, we are, and Cindy says, I answered yes, except for I don't know how to set boundaries. So we're going to work on better ways to do that. That is one of the areas of the work that I do with my clients that I find is the weakest. And so I've really done a lot of work on helping women with that because it is hard. We are socialized not to do it. All right, so let's get back to the material. Boundary basics. What is a boundary? It's a line or a fence that marks the given limits of an area. What's a relationship boundary? It's a limit that tells you where one person stops and the other person starts. Boundaries in relationships can be, and I'm going to put this in the chat so that you guys don't have to take copious notes. Boundaries in relationships can be emotional, spiritual, physical, sexual or embodied, intellectual, material, relational or connectional, right? How we will relate to one another, time. And I also would like to add cultural and environmental. A lot of the work that I do with people is cross-cultural. I've got clients from the Middle East that I work with. And one of the things that I have really stepped into this year with boundaries is the fact that setting boundaries within a collective society and setting boundaries within an individualistic society, individualistic meaning like the United States, are very different, and there are very different norms. We're not going to talk about that today, but I do want you guys to be aware of that. The goal of boundaries, we're going to talk about in a minute, but it's basically to establish the limits in a way that helps you feel safe and keeps the relationship safe. And I have 4 pillars of boundaries, and I'm also going to put those in the chat. Hold, please. The 4 pillars that I always set when I am working on boundaries is what I'm saying totally honest? Is it totally kind? Is it totally necessary? And is this the right time to do it? So those are the 4 pillars. And if one of the pillars has been smashed, then I usually don't move forward with what I'm about to say, or I find a different way to say it. So those are my purpose. Those are my pillars of boundaries. So what's the purpose? What's the goal of boundaries? Boundaries create a framework around what each person can expect in the relationship container. They create expectations of what will and will not be tolerated, and they provide a clear indicator of who gets access to your time, energy, and wisdom. So the last part, access. A lot of times when we set a boundary, and raise your hand if I've got any like parents or step parents or bonus people in the room. Yeah. A lot of times what we think of when we set boundaries are, I'm being a jerk because I'm saying no. But what we don't realize is before we get to a point of setting that limit, a lot of times the other person has already opted out of participating in whatever action that we are going through, right? So if a person acts poorly, before we even say, because of your behavior, I'm stepping back, they've opted out of access to us. So that language, especially as women, that the fact that the other person has opted out gives us a sense of agency that a lot of times is missing in boundaries. So just hold on to that as we move forward. One of the biggest problems that I see with boundaries and that I hear from all of my clients is, but my boundaries never work. And what I have found is that is because they are making a request or an ultimatum instead of setting an actual boundary. So we are not here to learn how to set requests or ultimatums. We want to learn how to set boundaries. The basic difference, and you guys can take a screenshot of this if you would like, because this has been my go-to guide for how to set boundaries. A request is asking someone else to do something. Would you be willing to do this? I would like you to, or I would appreciate it if you could. An ultimatum sounds like, if you felt like this, you would do this, or you have to stop yelling at me, or you can't treat me like that, or you need professional help. So it's the you have to do this. So an ultimatum is about force. It's about getting somebody else to do something with a demand. The line between request and ultimatum can sometimes be really thin, right? Sometimes it just depends on the tone of voice that you bring. Conversely, a boundary is not about what you're trying to get somebody else to do. It's about what you are going to do. It's about your personal power. It's about setting your personal limits, right? It sounds like this. I'm willing to continue talking to you if you change your tone of voice. I'm taking my own car to the event because let's say this person can't drive. I need some time for myself. Would you be willing to discuss how we could create that in our relationship? That's both a boundary and a request. I prefer to know where you are so that we can continue to keep a close and intimate relationship? Would you be willing to? Right? So you see, again, we've got a little bit of the request with the boundary. So how have you heard boundaries versus ultimatums versus requests languaged in the past? Give me an example of a boundary that was used on you that was effective, or an ultimatum that was not effective. Pop it in the chat. I know I just put you guys all on the spot. I know one of mine is, if you do this, forget ever seeing me again. Yep. You better get help or else. Right? So, yep, Amber, good. Right? Ghosting, the ultimate painful response to a boundary. And what if we could language it differently? You can't, with a boundary, you're never in control with what somebody else does. It's more important that you use your voice than that you use a boundary to guarantee a response. Because you can have the best boundary in the world, and if the other person doesn't have the capacity to receive it, it may not land. But the important thing is you have still owned and verbalized the agency that you have needed to set that boundary. And then their behavior is on them, right? And so that's some of what we are gonna, yep, I hear your needs are X and my needs are Y. And that sometimes will start the negotiation of what to do next. If it's not crosstalk, right? Like, I know one of the challenges my partner and I have are, well, I did the dishes today. Yeah, but I did them yesterday. This is like an ongoing conversation we have. And then we have to call it out as crosstalk and back up and renegotiate. So even in really strong relationships, this is an ongoing conversation that you're going to have. So I want to tell you guys about a client story, and then we're going to get into some of the experiential things. So I want to tell you about my client B. She came to me. She was raised in a home that was very, very toxic. Both of her parents were incredibly toxic. And then she got into a 15-year marriage with a diagnosed narcissist, but she didn't know he was a narcissist when they got married. They got divorced. She went through a slew of really unhealthy relationships after that. And she said, you know, I started to wonder, maybe I deserved more than what I'd been accustomed to creating in relationships. That's why I came to you. She said, I'm a creature of habit and I really don't like my habits. I know that when I'm in a conversation, I just bark back. My habits aren't good and I don't want to be here anymore. So when I came to you for help, I decided we're not going to do it my way. We're going to try yours. So she signed up for my relationship reset 6-month program. While in my program, she went through a hurricane. She went through some catastrophic losses. Her life literally upended. But because of support, she was able to navigate those challenges. And at the end, she said to me, you know, your program has equipped me with a relationship blueprint, a set of beautiful boundaries for myself, and I found the agency and the courage to use them both. She said, I'm light years ahead of where I was before. Your program gave me incredible tools. You elevated my awareness of who I am, and you elevated my potential for relationships. I'll never forget the time that she stepped into one of our sessions and she said to me, she said, Jenny, I started using the boundaries from module 4 and I went to work and I used them. And she said, I watched people respond. And then I watched them actually do what I needed them to do. It was staggering. I couldn't believe people were listening to me. And it was one of the high points of my coaching with her because she'd never had anybody really listen to her in a way that made her feel seen, heard, and validated. So, all right, let's move on. Point 2, your nervous system as wing woman. I'm going to give you a 40,000-foot view on nervous system education, and then we are going to dive into 2 exercises. If you have your earphones, grab them now. You don't have to have them. And then you'll have them ready for the exercise. Okay, your nervous system. This is a 40,000-foot view. What is the nervous system? It is one of the systems in your body. It is your brain, spinal cord, and a complex network of nerves. It sends messages back and forth between the brain and the body and all of your extremities. It controls your bodily functions and consists of the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Your nervous system has 3 functions: sensory input. I touch, pressure, temperature, pain, vibration. Your nervous system is designed to receive that sensory input. Emotional sensory input, it is also designed to receive. Somebody causes me pain, my nervous system processes it. Integration, I've received those stimuli, and now I'm processing the different stimuli. So sensory input, then integration. And then once I've had the input, I've integrated it, then I am creating a motor output or a response generation. That is the purpose of your nervous system. Sometimes we get stuck in our nervous systems, right? And that's usually when things like finding our voice and boundaries is really, really difficult. The modes of the nervous system are sympathetic, which means upregulation or to get heightened in alertness, energy, blood pressure, heart rate, and breathing rate. The second mode is parasympathetic, which means to downregulate. And the vagus nerve, raise your hand if you've ever heard the vagus nerve. Somebody talk about, right? We all know the vagus nerve. So this is like the latest nervous system science. And polyvagal theory is one of the most recent findings from the vagus nerve studies. If you haven't read about it, it is fabulous and will help your practice. But the vagus nerve makes up about 75% of your parasympathetic nervous system, and it connects all the parts of your body. So when you go into those boundary conversations and your stomach gets upset, right? It gets anxious, and all of a sudden your brain starts going like this. That's because the vagus nerve is connecting both of them. Or maybe your hands get clammy, or your feet want to bounce, or you want to bounce. That's your nervous system doing what it's supposed to do, to figure out, how do I want to respond in this moment? Yes, your chest wants to explode, right? Vagus nerve. Hi, I'm scared. I don't know what to do. The vagus nerve is also connected to shutdown, right? Some people go into boundaries and they're like this. I know I was for years. That's called a freeze response. That's all your nervous system, right? So in order for us to navigate our nervous system, the first thing that we have to do is to know what the heck is our relationship landscape. If you have the workbook, this is on page 5. If you have a piece of paper, if you don't have the workbook, you can write it on a piece of paper. But I want us to become familiar with our relationship landscape. So we're going to take 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and we are going to look at creating the landscape that your nervous system lives in. Thank you, Chaplain Candy. And what I want you to do is think about when you go through your day, you might see a road and grass and buildings. You might see mountains or an ocean. You might see beautiful trees like Serena in Canada, right? Or on your East Coast and West Coasters who get all the trees. That is the landscape that you are visually seeing. You have an emotional, relational landscape too, right? And it looks like this. When I run into this person, I freeze. When I see that challenge, I know it's going to be a hill that I will die on, and I will leave people in my wake. When I see this event, or when this event happens, or when this person says this thing to me, it's an emotional landmine. The only way we can navigate our nervous system is to know what's in our landscape. So these are the elements that I want you to think about on your landscape. This is your landscape, so you create it how you want to. I want you to write down what sends you into orbit. Think about those words, those phrases, maybe when somebody rolls their eyes, right? What makes you like, it's just like a rocket ship taking off. What hills do you die on, right? This is the, no matter what, I'm going to do this and I will take you out to do it. This is the things that you get stubborn on. Where are you duplicating behavior from your caregivers? My mom was, my dad was, my grandma was, and now here I am doing the same thing, even though I promised myself I wouldn't do it. What or who are your landmines? That is the people that you see them coming and you're like, oh, I'm going to lose it. Or the things that make you just, it's similar to what sends you into orbit, but it has more of a, it's more of a, you don't kind of know it in advance. All of a sudden you're there, you step on it and it's like, oh my gosh. What shuts you down or makes you stop listening? And what are some unmet needs? What are the things that you're like, gosh, I just wish, because I wasn't ever heard by my parents. I need people to listen to me. It's really, really important. So take 3 minutes and on your relationship landscape, I want you to write down some of these things. Yes, absolutely, Elvira. The person who sends you in the orbit can be the one who you step on landmines with. Absolutely. So here's what I want you to think of when you're working on this for the next 3 minutes. We're not going to finish this today, and I'm going to tell you what I want you to do with it over the next 28 days. I just want you to get started. Okay. So, and if, like I said, if you don't have the workbook, just write it down on a piece of paper. And here are your guidelines, but this is your artistry. So have at it. And if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. Yes. Nancy, the first two is what sends you into orbit. So what makes you just like, you're fine 1 second, and then you're like in the stratosphere the next. And whether it's through fear or anger or trepidation, that is, it's just those people who are like, I can't believe you said that to me. And all of a sudden you're like off and running. What hills do you die on are, I'll give you an example. I knew I wanted to paint this entire house. And I had my dad and my partner basically saying like, you cannot paint this entire house when we moved in. And they said, I looked at them and I was like, I didn't say it, but essentially I put my hands on my hips and it's like, I'm gonna die on this hill. And so you guys can either just get in line or move aside. It's those things that you are like, I have drawn a line in the sand and you are not moving me. Think of like Taurus, the bull, right? This is where you get bullheaded and you're like, nah, and you'll take people out. Does that help, Nancy? Okay, so take another couple minutes. Landmines are, yeah, the things that you won't budge on. Landmines are, don't whatever me, are just the things that make you explode unexpectedly. This is all really similar and nuanced. So just do kind of your best. I just want a general, these are the things that send me into orbit. It doesn't have to be by the books. Put the student aside and just see what comes out. And I know we're moving through this fast. I want you to take about another 30 seconds and then just start recording in the chat some of the things that you've noticed. And then I'm going to tell you what I want you to do with this piece of paper moving forward. Yes, Cindy, right? Nobody can set us sideways like our family or our caregivers. And that's okay, because now you have awareness around it, which is half the battle. My people are my mom, brother, hubby, and kid. They are the same people. Yep. That is also very typical, right? They'll send us into orbit and they'll make us internally explode. They're also the people for which we have the greatest capacity to love too. But when we're mad, anything else? And then we are going to move on to the next exercise. Yep. A lot of times when we struggle with boundaries, it's because we've never been taught to put our needs first. We've never been taught to hear ourselves, right? So here's what I want you guys to do with this over the next 28 days. The stop listening part had me thinking political chatter. Yep. Stop listening. In moments when somebody yells, listen to the warning of others when I have a secondary gain. Yep. Good. So get community involved. Good, you guys. So this discovery process and the whole purpose of today is not to get us all the way through this exercise. It's to start the process. I want you to take this piece of paper or the paper that you've started, and I want you to put it somewhere where you'll see it and watch yourself over the next 28 days. Watch what happens. And as you notice, oh, that's a hill I'm dying on. Oh, that's an unmet need. Oh, that's when I stop listening. Just start recording it, because the better awareness you have of your landscape, the more you'll be able to equip to handle boundaries. All right, moving on to the next exercise. Okay, this is called surfing your system. So I'm going to play 1 minute and 40 seconds of a clip. I want you to do a couple things. It's a dance or a rave tune. It is designed to activate parts of your nervous system so that you can get an experience of what it sounds and feels like in a low tone or a high tone. This is intentionally supposed to carry you into sympathetic activation and then potentially parasympathetic activation. If it's too much, turn it down. If you don't want to use headphones, totally fine. I just want you to start feeling your body, and then we're going to talk about it. So 1 minute 40 seconds. Are you guys ready? Raise your hand if you're ready. Ready? Yes. This is super fun. And then I'm going to tell you a fun story about it. All right. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to stop share for a minute. Okay, you guys awake now? Pop in the chat. I know, right? Exactly. Pop in the chat a sensation, something that you felt in your body. Right. Yes, exactly. Fire. What else? Palpitations. Good. My energy increased. Excellent. Power. I love it. So you're seeing a mix. Got goosebumps. I did too, right? Did anybody, when it started, like the rave part, did anybody feel it in their ears? Yeah, it went like, welcome to your nervous system. This is what happens when you get ready to have conversations. Already stressed, so it's stressed. If I felt powerful, I would have loved it. Here's the interesting thing about anxiety and excitement. Sometimes it's the same chemicals and our body can't always tell the difference. I felt it in my jaws, my brain, right? You guys are like, ah. So why did I do that? Yes, exact same line of energy. That's your nervous system. I had my partner, when I tested this out, my poor partner, on my partner, I turned it way up and I put the noise canceling headphones on his ears. And the first thing that happened is his face flushed, right? And then I watched shallow breathing. He was like, and then when it got to some of the lower tones, I saw the lower part of him activate. And then he was going like this. That's how we move. This is moving energy. When we are getting ready to have boundary conversations, all of this is happening in our body. Our jobs are to move that energy. If you felt stressed, it might be because you felt trapped with the noise. How often do we go into conversations, boundary conversations with people, and we feel trapped in internal noise? And our body's like, just shake your butt, move your head, right? Just dance around. Get the energy moving. Emotion is energy in motion, and it needs to move through our body. If you have a hard conversation with somebody, first thing I want to tell you guys to do, shake it out. Shake your body, move, put this song on. We'll put the link in the in the chat. But it's a great way to get your body connected. Good. Okay. Back to, and hopefully this won't start again. All right. There we go. All right. In your workbook, you have a bonus. We're not going to go over this today, but the iceberg, and you can screenshot this, is a tool that is designed, I use it with all my clients. It is a tool designed to help you get in touch with the environment, the people, the stories, the sensations, and the emotions that come up that are below the behavior that's popping out. Both you and the person you're having a conversation with have these going on. And so this tool will help you diagram that. All right. I want to tell you a very quick client story about my client T. And his pattern, his boundary pattern, was from cotton ball to cannonball. And as a result, he was highly anxious in his relationships. He came to me because he just wanted to be a healthy person. He wanted to get away from the anxiety. He wanted to find his voice, and he wanted to be able to set healthy boundaries that were true to him. He started out in relationships as just people pleasing, cotton ball, but also an anxious mess. He wouldn't use his voice. By the end, and then within 2 months, he turned into a cannonball, and he would step into that relationship and he would bomb it with all of these boundaries. And so he destroyed every relationship he was in, despite being highly successful at work. He came into my program, Relationship Reset. We worked on boundaries. We identified some of the problematic patterns. We did parts work and brain spotting around them. And we unlocked the parts of him that were keeping him stuck. Then we unleashed him on the dating world, and voila, he met the love of his life. About 2 months ago, I got an email from his partner who said to me, the work that you helped T do in your program changed not only his life, but it changed my life. I've been looking for my partner my entire life, and I'm so grateful that I finally found him. And it was just this beautiful, like T came into my program and said, like I said to him, I can't promise you that you're going to have a healthy relationship. I can promise that you're going to be healthier. And then at the end, he said, I'm in a very healthy relationship, and it is beyond my wildest dreams. So, all right, last point, scripting for success. This is how to unleash your authentic voice. I want to tell you guys about a voicemail script that I never forgot. And it is a voicemail script that I that really taught me a lot about boundaries from a Hurricane Katrina survivor. In 2005, Hurricane Katrina barreled in and uprooted thousands of people. 62 families landed in my backyard in rural Georgia, and a team of us mobilized to get them back on their feet. One interaction from a survivor stands out. I was doing a women's group, and a young woman in that group was stuck in this system of toxic relationships in New Orleans. Katrina separated her from all those toxic relationships, and she realized, my life is so much better and calmer, despite the fact that she had lost everything and she was displaced from her home. So she decided to change her life and carefully crafted her voicemail to start the process. And this is what the voicemail said: due to circumstances beyond my control, I have decided to make some changes in my life. If I do not call you back, you are one of those changes. This one statement showed me a wonderful boundary framework that I still use today, and I love it. And by the way, she completely transformed her circle. So, what's the framework? Step 1, due to circumstances beyond my control. Raise your hand if you've ever had circumstances beyond your control. Right? They just come in like a groundswell. Things happen, life happens, we change. Acknowledging those changes is step 1 to creating healthy boundaries. Step 2, I've decided. This survivor embraced her agency and decided boundaries require a decision. Step 3, to make a change. A decision leads to a change. One is in the head, and one is with the feet. Step 4, if I don't call you back, you're one of those changes, and this is the intended change. A lot of times we'll go through 3 steps, but then we won't make the change. In your workbook, I put another bonus. It's called the AID framework. I did not develop it, but it has been very, very helpful. Yes, the heart may have more work to do. Exactly. The AID framework is a really good framework to help you with boundary setting and with scripting. So that is a little bonus in the workbook. All right, the script. So this is the script that I work with all of my clients through. This is called the 4-step rule of communication. Whenever you have a boundary, try placing it in this framework to help you navigate the conversation. This is on page 7 in your workbook, 7 and 8. And what I do with this framework is I actually write out what I'm trying to say using this framework so that I know ahead of time how I want to language something. So I didn't invent it, but it has saved me a lot of conflict issues. So step 1 is when you, and then you insert the offending behavior here. Step 2 is I felt, and then insert the feeling that you felt when step 1 happened. Step 3 is in the future, I would like to see this happen. And you start painting the picture of the future and the result that you want. I'm sorry, in the picture that you want. Step 4 is the result. So paint a picture of the result of that positive action. As much as possible, leave moral judgments of the behavior out of the equation. So let's try an example. When you screamed at me for not loading the dishwasher, step 1, that's recording the event. Step 2, how you felt. I felt hurt, angry, and ashamed. Step 3, in the future, I would appreciate it if you speak to me calmly about how you would like the dishwasher loaded. And step 4, if you can speak to me calmly, it will help me better meet the needs and requests that you have. And that is taking something through the 4-step rule of communication. Keep in mind, one and done is not going to be how this works. You will have to keep going back many times. Sometimes it takes 3 or 4 times to see someone's capacity. I usually encourage people to go through this 2 to 3 times and keeping it focused on the person's the behavior, not the character. And don't get discouraged. This is about changing a behavior, not a moral assessment of the person's character, and that takes time. All right. Screenshot this. These are actual scripts, another bonus, that I use for helping people with boundaries. So go ahead and screenshot this and keep it with you, because you can use these. I literally have a file on my phone that's called scripting, and I will go back to these and I will copy, paste, modify in really hard conversations. So something to keep in mind that I learned from a dear friend of mine: people deserve an answer, but are not always entitled to an explanation. If you're an over-explainer, keep that at the ready for you. So let's do a review of what we learned today. First, we learned about the boundary blueprint. This is what boundaries are and what they are, what the parameters are, and how you can use them in your life. Then we learned about your nervous system as wing woman, how you can create a nervous system friendly, boundary friendly interaction. And then we talked about scripting for success. So pop a note in the chat of one thing that you learned today that you're going to take with you. And then I'm going to very quickly tell you about an offer, my very special offer. And I know a couple of you have to leave because it's the top of the hour. So what is one thing that you're going to take away with you? Nobody has any things that they're going to take away. The 4-step rule. Amber says the landscape map. I'm not questioning my memory because I know, isn't that awesome? I used that this week. Good. So we've got some good ahas. The landscape map, right? And one of the things with the landscape map, you guys, as you leave it someplace where you can see it, you're going to learn more about yourself. And then the scripting. Good. Nervous system exercises. Exactly. It doesn't seem so overwhelming when we can say, oh, that's just like the song that we heard, right? Good. Landscape map. Awesome. So as we close today, I want to tell you a little bit about the special offer that I have for you. Practice. Yes. How I'm holding on to the boundaries that I state. Very good, you guys. Good. So I want to tell you guys a little bit about my offer. So I have a signature program. It's called Relationship Reset, and it is a blended coaching approach. You guys have heard me talk about this throughout throughout today. And it is a blend of one-on-one coaching sessions that are customized to your needs and presenting challenges, as well as online self-paced training modules, just like this one that I taught you today, to help you get to the root cause of the relationship issues keeping you from moving forward in your life and into your potential. So it is a 6-month container, and we go through 6 different modules. Month 1, we talk about identity. When you've been through really difficult relationship situations, your identity gets shattered. So much about the first month is really bringing you back to a good sense of who you are. Month 2, we talk about your relationship imprint. Who you were raised to be has a tremendous impact on your relationships, and a lot of your relationship behavior is what's called subcortical, or below your thinking brain. That's why you get into interactions with people and all of a sudden you're hijacked into responding in a certain way and you don't know how you got there. So we'll work on unpacking some of those. All of the modalities I use are subcortical modalities: brain spotting, IFS, and ISP. And so that helps you unlock those things that are keeping you stuck. We go through in month 3, your core needs. What are the things you want and need in relationships? Month 4, we talk about a deep dive into boundaries. This was the tip of the iceberg, no pun intended, of what I teach with boundaries and scripting and relationship communication. Then we talk about in month 5, conflict. The number one question I get in my practice is, how do I survive relationship conflict and how do I navigate it better? So we do a deep dive on where you self-destruct in conflict so that you can get to the root cause of what's holding you back and get you into being finally free in your relationships. And then we go through integration. And integration is, what do you specifically need in order to integrate the learnings from my relationship work so that you can go out and be fully empowered in relationships in your life, but also in business. I am continually delighted at how this work not only impacts women in interpersonal relationships, but also in business. And so that is the program. It looks like this. That is Relationship Reset. So I have opened up 4 spaces on my calendar over the next 2 days, and I would love to talk with you. I have my Relationship Reset Clarity call. And in this call, we talk about kind of what's keeping you stuck to see if we are a fit to work together, if you're interested in my program, and if this is something that would be in your highest and best good over the next 6 months. I love doing this work. I am so sold out to this work. I have been since I was a kid, and I love getting results like this. You know, I've had 2 clients this past year come to me right as they got engaged because they had conflict issues that took them out. And they wanted to work with me in order to do things different this time. And both of them, as a result of the work in Relationship Reset, are thriving in their relationships. And seeing them thrive is, you know, my greatest joy. I've had clients come to me presenting with relationship issues who came through, did the unburdening work, did the family work, the imprint work, came through all of that, improved, she improved her relationship with herself, was set free to be in a great relationship with herself, and is now freaking crushing it as a coach, making 10K months regularly. Totally unexpected conclusion, but that is the result of doing the subcortical work. You heal yourself too. And so many clients have said to me, you know, my communication is better, my conflict is different because of the work, and I know who I am. I walk down the street and I hold my head higher because of this. So I would love to meet with you, and one of my clients wanted me to share this with you. This is the link to a Relationship Reset Clarity call. And from my client to you, she said, life is hard enough, so why not give yourself all the support that you can? Well, thank you all for coming to this. I will be running boundaries again, so I'll let you guys know. My next training is going to be December, I wrote it down, December 5th at 10 a.m. Pacific. I think that is a Tuesday. It's a Tuesday? I think it's a Tuesday. So it's during the Speakathon week. So I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing yet, but I know that's going to be the next one. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for supporting me and for supporting my work in helping set women free from toxic relationship cycles and helping them live into their full potential. I am incredibly grateful, and this was very rewarding for me. So thank you, everybody, and we will talk soon. Bye for now.